Every next era begins with this moment of honesty, and maybe this is yours. Welcome to the next era. I'm Faizah Baldonado, a life design strategist and growth mentor, and this is where we slow things down enough to think clearly about who you are now, what season you're in, and what actually fits for you. So if you're ready to build from that clarity instead of pressure, you're in the right place. Now, I've been thinking about how to start this podcast properly. I didn't want to start with something that was like super impressive. I didn't want to make a big statement. I just wanted to share honestly and freely, because if you're going to spend time listening to me, I think you should understand how I got here. And maybe in that you'll hear parts of your own story as well. My first coaching business was called A Woman's Worth. And when I look back at that now, that name says everything. Because at the time, I thought I was teaching women about confidence and self-belief, and I was. But I was still figuring out my own sense of worth quietly in the background. And those early years were super reflective. There was a lot of thinking, a lot of over-processing, a lot of learning how to hold space for women while still learning how to hold space for myself. And eventually, that business evolved into Transform and Thrive. And that shift was more than a name change. It marked a personal shift within me. I stopped trying to prove I was worthy. I started to learn how to actually live from that place. And at that stage in my life, I didn't see myself so much as ambitious. I just saw myself as this really reliable person. I was the one who would get it done, the one who would always provide support, the one who would hold things together for people. And that season taught me something so important, that self-awareness isn't something that's overly dramatic. It's steady, it's quiet, and alignment doesn't arrive with a whole lot of noise. It's just something that builds quietly. At the same time, I was growing in my healthcare career in corporate, and I loved the purpose. I genuinely enjoyed improving systems, leading projects, and working with amazing teams. And there was a lot of meaning in it for me. But underneath that was a lot of pressure, and a lot that I put on myself. There was the perfectionism, that constant sense that I needed to stay ahead, the belief that being capable meant saying yes a lot and taking on more. And I did. I took on more until my nervous system eventually said, that's enough. And from the outside, it probably looked like success. On the inside, I was stretched. I was exhausted, just so exhausted. And I've realized since then that burnout doesn't always come from doing too much. Sometimes it comes from carrying all the things that no longer fit who you are becoming. And that was really a hard thing for me to admit. There was a season where I stepped back, I slowed down, and slowing down felt really, really uncomfortable. It just wasn't my style. And when you've built your identity around being capable, stillness just feels so unfamiliar, sometimes ridiculous. And I really questioned myself. I wondered, was I letting people down? I wondered if I was like falling behind. But once the noise settled, something else happened. I could hear myself again. And I started to connect these little dots, like moving from the Philippines to Australia when I was 7, starting businesses, evolving brands, growing in healthcare, burning out, slowing down. None of that was random, because I realized each chapter was teaching me something about leadership, about energy, about pace, about self-trust. And I didn't need necessarily to start over. Like, I didn't need to burn everything down and start again, is what I mean. I realized what I needed was just to integrate. And that's really where the next era came from. And there's something else about me that's important. Most people don't believe it when I say, but I am actually naturally introverted. Most people don't expect that because I show up confidently. I love being in coaching spaces. I connect deeply with people, and I genuinely care about what motivates someone and what they're building. But I really need recovery time. I need quiet. I need space to think. And for years, I thought confidence meant being louder and brighter and more visible and this bigger main character energy. But that was never me. And for a long time, I thought that meant that I wasn't confident enough. And then I came across the phrase quietly confident. Actually, it was a book that I came across at the airport by Kate James. So Kate, if you're listening to this, thank you. Great book. I learned a lot. And something settled. And I realized that confidence isn't volume, it's clarity. It's knowing your pace and not apologizing for it. And that understanding changed how I lead and how I design my work. And then 2025, it brought grief. Real grief. The kind that forces you to look at your life differently. When you lose people close to you, your priorities rearrange themselves whether or not you're ready. And grief has this way of exposing what you've been tolerating, what I'd been tolerating, and it made me look at my calendar differently, at my energy differently, and my commitments differently. And that's when I realized something I hadn't consciously examined before. I realized I had this internal agreement that I've been living by for years, and it kind of sounded like this. I can handle it. I'll rise to it. I won't drop the ball, and I'll manage. I'll make it work. I can make anything work. I can do this. And that agreement helped me build a lot of good things. But I had evolved, and I realized I just hadn't updated it. I hadn't updated my internal agreement. And that's when the shift from being a responder to being a chooser started. I was really proud of being a responder, and being a chooser felt like, oh my gosh, dude, can I be? Now I think of it, it's like being someone who's able to choose from the truth within themselves. It's kind of like this luxury. Yeah. And it feels good. Yeah. But I was really good at responding. If there's a problem, I fix it. If someone needs something, I step in. And if something feels urgent, I know how to act. But I started to ask a different question. Not, can I do this? But, is this mine to carry? And that question slowed me down in the best way, because just because I can handle more doesn't mean I have to. And that's been the deeper work for me. Not doing less for the sake of it, but choosing very deliberately. And sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes it's yes, but later. Sometimes it's just a no with love. Sometimes it's just asking for support instead of defaulting to just carrying it all myself. And that shift has changed now in how I operate in business, in leadership, and in my personal life. And this is also how my program Ascension evolved. The women who come into that space are already really thoughtful and really capable. And they're not trying to become someone else. They're just trying to calibrate. And they want their life to reflect who they are now, not who they were 5 years ago. And we'll talk more about that in future episodes. But today I'm curious about you. As you're listening, I'm just wondering, where are you? Where are you in your world? Are you still operating under an agreement that you made in a different chapter? Are you carrying things because you can or because they're actually yours? And if you gave yourself permission to pause and not quit or not have to make any dramatic changes or moves, but if you just pause long enough to reassess, what might you notice? You know, what feels slightly like tight, uncomfortable, what feels slightly out of sync? Because I'm not saying you have to fix it today. I just want you to think about it. Just notice it. The next era isn't about reinventing yourself. It's about being honest about where you are. So this week, just sit with this. What agreement am I still living by that might need a little bit of updating? And just let that question stay open. We'll keep connecting the dots together, and I'll talk to you in the next episode.